me, looking after myself, I cannot be an effective husband or father or son. And I think to me, that is fundamental. That's where things begin. In fact, I was thinking about when you fly in an aeroplane, the first thing they tell you is, oh, in case there's an oxygen failure, you need to put on your mask, make sure that you are breathing, then you can help those around you. So basically what Dr. is telling us, don't ignore yourself. Because if you pay attention to yourself, both health mentally and physically, then you will be in a position to care for others. Say, I look after myself physically, I exercise almost every day, and most importantly, I have a good group of friends and a support system. And again, of course, you know, as we speak today, the influence of our peers is quite fundamental. Then finally, you know, one of the things I detest, you know, you go to church and some pastor comes and is going to be introduced, and then they always finish by saying he's married to one wife. See, why is it necessary that you have to keep announcing that he's married to one wife? I actually don't like that. But this is what comes out in Dr. Njenga. So he was asked a question. There was a photograph which was seen on the wall, and he was asking, oh, what was that? Who was that? And this is one thing which actually I loved, and they say, this is what I'm going to finish with when I will introduce Dr. Njenga, because it says a lot about him. It says, 4 women in my life are the source of happiness for me. The first is my mother. She's 94. I don't know when this was done though. There is my wife. I've been with my wife for over 50 years. Now again, I don't want to ask how many of you are below 50 years. Then there is my daughter. Then my granddaughter. My source of great joy. And now think about that. And so I want to take this opportunity to welcome Dr. Njenga, who is our very best in our republic, to talk to us about mental health. Dr. Njenga, please.
One of the things that happen as one grows older is you become increasingly forgetful, and to obviate the possibility that I might forget the most important thing for today, I will say it first. Professor, this girl must go. Zeddy must go. Zeddy is a bully. She has forced me to do things I did not want to do. I am here because of you, Zedi. And I will instigate your removal. Don't ever do this thing to an old man again. Have you understood me?
Yes, sir.
But I'm looking for a girl to employ. Yeah? So if ever you want a job, Zedi, Zedi will be happy to take you on. She has been an absolute star in the way she has persisted and insisted that this is important. I have tried to avoid, I have tried to evade, until it became easier for me to just say yes. Ladies and gentlemen, I am very, very glad to be here this afternoon. The last time I was associated with KCA was when it was the Kenya College of Accountancy at the main campus where we are. I was a guest of Martin Oduor, who still is a very good friend of mine, and who was the time working for Barclays Bank before he went to KCB, and with whom I continue to enjoy a very good relationship. I then saw my old friend, Joe Muchekebu. I don't know what he's doing with KCA, but if you want to know the generation that existed, it is that kind of generation. So thank you very much for the invitation. Now, I was asked to speak about a whole lot of things, and I will try and cover as much as I can in the time that is allocated to me. If you feel tired and you want to sleep, that's okay. I understand people get tired. Please try not to yawn too loudly. You're welcome to yawn if you're getting tired. But for those who remain awake, my suspicion is that I will be able to give you one or two things that you might want to take home. So this is what I'm going to tell you. I will tell you, first of all, that I am the Presidential Advisor on Mental Health. And part of the reason I acceded to Zedi's bullying was because my job description as Presidential Advisor requires me to engage the public anywhere I find them. If I find them in matatus, if I find them in church, if I find them at universities, I am required to engage with any and every Kenyan to pass on the gospel of mental health. So in my performance metrics and measurement, I will say Zedi called me to go to KCA University, and I will be paid handsomely. So I'll talk a little bit about how that happened. I'll tell you a little bit about the task force. I will then proceed to tell you what mental health is, because not everybody here actually knows what mental health is, and less still know what a mentally healthy person should be like. The next thing I will tell you is about depression, for the simple reason that the commonest condition that people suffer in mental health is depression. I didn't want to talk about COVID-19, but my letter invitation requires me to say something about COVID-19, so I will be forced to say something. I will then tell you about some general symptoms of mental illness, but because most of you are students, I will say a word or two about students' mental health in general, not just at KCA, and I will finish off by saying very, very briefly about substance abuse, which is a common problem in students. Next slide, please. So about 2 years ago, the president in Narok had the following to say about mental health. This is the first time in my recollection that a president has used the word mental health. It's the first time in a national address that the issues of mental health have been raised. And I have to confess I was a very, very happy man that morning. I quote, "Depression has today become a common phenomenon and it affects persons from all walks of life and ages." All walks of life and ages. From professors, to doctors, to students, to your grandmother, to your grandfather, everybody. He proceeded to say, "I urge employers and institutions of learning to invest more time and resources in monitoring and facilitating the mental well-being of their charges. I therefore direct the Ministry of Health in consultation with county government, ministries of education, labor, and so on and so forth, to formulate an appropriate policy response." Cutting a long, next slide please, a long story short, Cabinet directed that a task force be formed. They asked me to chair it. We went across the country. People, church people, atheists, street people, armed forces, teachers, students. And on the 7th of July 2020, in the middle of the corona, I submitted the report to government, and to my shock and excitement, the then Cabinet Secretary, Mutahi, had actually read the report. And it was the first time that I had seen a report being presented where a Cabinet Secretary was able to interrogate the experts. And that gave me a great deal of happiness. So after all the things that we had done and all the places that we had been to, what did we report to the government? We reported to the government that among students, among their parents and grandparents and neighbors and churches, there is a very high burden of mental disease, and nobody is spared. Secondly, there is a very high level of stigmatization. In other words, if you are known to have a mental illness, you are excluded from mainstream society. You're not allowed to become a university professor. You're not admitted to university. People laugh and jeer at you, and so on. The third thing that we discovered was that there is very low investment in mental health. In other words, the recommended amount to be invested in mental health globally is 250 shillings per person per annum. In Kenya, we invest in Burudu Tatu, 15 cents. I don't know how you count that in Kenya today. It cannot even buy peremende. We also discovered that children are disproportionately affected. And as I'll be telling you later on, and I'll show you a slide on this one, by the time children sit for their KCPE in standard 8, 50% of all the mental disorders that will be developed by human beings should have been identified. Let me repeat that. By the age of 14, if your eyes and ears are open, you should have been able to diagnose 50% of the mental disorders that will afflict children. Secondly, and again I'll come back to this, looking at all of you here, some of you are 19, maybe 20, 21, maybe the oldest 22. By the age of 24, 75% of all the mental illness that will ever be diagnosed in human beings should have been detected. Therefore, the time to act is yesterday, not tomorrow. The time to act is when boys and girls are in primary school, when boys and girls are at university like this. And I see these young men and women here, and I get excited because I see everywhere written opportunity, opportunity, opportunity. And that is the other reason why Zedi agreed to come, because I see opportunity. And the last bullet point says that we discovered that the boy child is neglected. Now, it's almost counterintuitive. It's almost counterintuitive because in most instances, it is a girl child that we think of. But people of Kenya, Kenyans told us, because this is not my report, I'm reporting what Kenyans told us, that you people have concentrated so much on girls, you have forgotten the boys. Point to ponder. Next slide, please. So, then we set up a whole lot of recommendations. I will not go into all the recommendations, but you can see them there. A whole lot of recommendations. Next slide, please. Including the decentralization of mental health services in our country. Part of that is informed by finding that we made a few years ago. We went about 10 years ago to Maseno district, as it then was, and looked for mental illness among others, among farmers, about fishmongers, about people just walking in the street, people in matatus, and realized that out of just ordinary people going to church or going to school, whatever it is, 11% of them have a mental illness of one sort or another. Now let me say that in a language you might be able to understand. I will not talk about you because you're here. So let's talk about those people online. Yes? You said there were how many people? 100 people. About. If there are 100 people online, 11 of them already have a mental illness of one sort or another. All right? That is what we discovered. When you go into a matatu today and you are 10 people, one of you will be having, if you go to a church and there are 100 people in church on that day, you get the drift. The fact that you don't know is the evidence and confirmation of your ignorance and nothing else. 6% of the women who walk the streets have diagnosable mental illnesses that are not recognized as such. So before I go any further, let's ask ourselves the all-important question. What is mental health? The definition that we must use today is that of the World Health Organization, which is the body that tells us this is disease A, disease B, disease C. So, mental health, and if you don't mind, you can be quiet. Thank you. Good mental health is a state of well-being in which the individual realizes his or her own abilities. I ask you, gentlemen, ladies, have you realized your full potential as of now? Answer that yourself. Second requirement is that you can cope with normal stresses of life. Do exams overstress you? Does wet weather like this stress you? Does it stop you doing your work? We should be able to live with the daily stresses of life if we are mentally healthy. The third requirement is that you can work productively and fruitfully. Are you working fruitfully and productively? The last one is the reason I came here, yes? And you must be able to make a contribution to your community. I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, what is your contribution to this, our society? Without saying too much, are you going to vote, for example? Do you help the elderly? Are you a member of your community church? Or are you like your dog, that all you do is to eat and you nothing else? A healthy person is more than his dog. And to restate this perhaps less dramatically, there is no concept of health without mental health. Allow me to say some things very quickly on what is depression. Is that a slide? Huh? What is that one? That one. These are slides that are not original. You can get them Google anywhere you like, particularly the World Health Organization site. And I will not spend too much time talking about them. So I will say only very brief things about what depression is. I've said this, and even if you don't allow me to, I will keep repeating this because it is the most important thing. Depression can happen to anyone, and is not a sign of weakness. Historically, when I started in this profession, people thought that only weak people become depressed. Well, if you think that, you tell me about Winston Churchill, a weak man indeed. Abraham Lincoln, a weak man indeed. Depression happened to the best and also, of course, and the worst. And you can tell you're depressed because you have a persistent sense of sadness and loss of interest in activities that you normally enjoy. If you enjoy reading, if you enjoy watching football, if you enjoy going to church, if you enjoy visiting your friends, and you find that you are losing that, then it is possible that you are becoming depressed. Now, the question that many people ask is, what is the difference between depression in a clinical sense and sadness? Well, sadness is a kind of thing that you feel, yes, when you lose your laptop. Yes? Sadness is the kind of thing that you feel when you and your mother are not getting on. Sadness is what you feel when your girlfriend decides to go to another boy. And that shouldn't last long because there are many girls. Now, I think. So, depression is the similest kind of feeling of sadness that persists for a period of at least 2 weeks, is present on most days, yes, and interferes with your being able to attend school or to do the normal things of life. And its most severe forms, you start getting thoughts of harming yourself or of suicide. So what can you do about it? What can you do about depression? You can talk to somebody. And what has surprised me as I've gone through this profession is how often you think that this professor doesn't know anything about human beings because he's just a teacher. You might think that this Mkubwa here, or even the girl sitting next to you will be surprised by how often you tell a friend at church, a friend in class, a friend that you have met, that this is how you feel. And more often than not, they say, Haya, hata mimi, kwanza I had a cousin. I had a cousin who was exam. And you know what happened? Story. We are incredible banks of knowledge and experience. And do not estimate your friends. The last bullet point says, stay connected with friends and family. God was not foolish when he created the institution of family. And we are who we are as a society because we have friends. So what else can you do about depression? And I'm zooming fast. You've been told by a professor here that I exercise regularly. I'm not suggesting that you do that, but it's a good thing. And the good thing about exercise, quite jumla, is that everybody thinks you do it so that your tumor doesn't become big, like mine, or so that you don't get high blood pressure or diabetes. Not true. Exercise is good for your head. Your head, even classwork, gets better as you exercise. Regular habits of eating, of sleeping, and so on. If you can, avoid alcohol. Alcohol is a bad thing, but equally importantly, if you want to die, smoke cigarettes. All right? The cigarette industry is the only industry that is made in such a way that it kills its most faithful customers. And if you feel like life is not worth living, please let somebody know. Finished. The depressing part is finished, so I'll drink some water. My letter of invitation required that I say something about COVID-19. And there are so many things that one can say about COVID-19. The only one or two things I'd like you to take note of is that many people who previously coped well are now less able to cope because of the multiple stressors generated by the pandemic. That doesn't even have to be said. It is obvious that this business of working from home, this business of not being able to visit your mothers and grandmothers, this business of not being able to going to church, this business of not having any business to do, all the things that keep you safe from COVID are the very ones that destabilize your society. And we know from experience, whether it is an economic crisis or whether it's weather-related crisis, a crisis that disrupts social order invariably lead to challenges of the type that we are now seeing. At the early stages of the crisis, this graph was shown over and over again. Flatten the curve, flatten the curve, flatten the curve. The curve of infections by the virus. But if you look below it, here, there is another curve that comes behind that big curve. And that is the curve of mental illnesses. It will come. Not true. It has come. We have seen it in children. We have seen it expressed as domestic violence. We have seen it as rates of increased alcoholism, and so on. So the incidence of mental disorders have affected, next slide please, the individuals, the families, the community, workplace disruption. I'm sure it's affected the university as well as every other place, the country, and the world. So, ladies and gentlemen, the way this COVID-19 is affecting us was predicted in May 2020. Did we listen? So these are the issues, next slide please. These are the issues that have caused the disruption that I'm talking about. People working from home have its own big issues. Interestingly, I was telling my team, try and remind me the last time I did a face-to-face lecture, and I can't remember. My life has changed. I don't do this. Well, I don't do this. I honestly do not do this, but because I'm an obedient citizen who listens to the instructions of our government. Next slide, please. So the issues that are coming up, or rather have come up, and we know them all, are the increased rates of anxiety, of loneliness. I will not have time to tell you one of the things that have happened recently that are most worrisome to us, the elderly. We are not dying as much of old age anymore, as it used to be called. We're dying of loneliness. If you have a grandfather at the age of 70 or a grandmother, and they live alone in Makueni or Kumape, and you don't visit them, you're killing them. If you have parents in that category, and you don't visit them, and they stay lonely, they are more likely to die from the disease of loneliness than from heart attack or stroke. or complications of cigarette smoking. Loneliness is killing more elderly people. I will say nothing about domestic violence or self-esteem. So, how do you recognize poor mental health in yourself? It's actually easy. It's actually easy. You can actually tell because you are feeling stressed. You're not feeling like yourself. From a very happy-go-lucky student who's able to interact with boys and girls happily, to one who is shy and lacking in self-confidence, to one who is unable to present your work on time, that is a possibility that you are going into depression or some other mental illness. A deviant from the person that you used to be. Maybe I should say, there used to be a nightclub downstairs when we were in Nairobi, we had in Nairobi University. And by the very nature, university students, I think sometimes become thirsty and they go to nightclubs. And that itself is not a bad thing. What is a bad thing is to go and stay in that place until 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, and your schoolwork does not work. So a young boy or girl who's been able to concentrate their time, to plan their time, who suddenly find themselves drinking most of the night and coming to the class smelling of oil and pombe, really that is a sign of it's not. I think we should talk a little bit about the workplace because I think there are members of staff here withdrawn from the rest of the team. By nature, the human person is a social animal. And when you find that one or the other professor or lecturer is not mixing with other people or is just spending all their time in their little rooms, indifference to the fatal outcome of what is happening in the rest of the university, I suspect, good. That is to wake you up. I planned this. Indifference to those people around you. Putting things off and missing deadlines. Lateness to work. Accidents like this one. One of the ways we monitor workplace efficiency is by monitoring the number of accidents that happen, for example, on the factory floor. But that number of accidents can also be calculated in drivers who work for university, for example. Strained relationship, professors who are shouting and screaming at students who are without respect of their professors, and so on. And finally, we can tell, as mental health specialists, that this is a boy or girl who used to come to us well-groomed. Her grooming day was always Saturday afternoon. And then suddenly, she comes with smelly hair, or the boy comes with chafu clothes. Those changes are indicators that all is not well. But there are other signs. Sleep, loss of appetite, loss of initiative, feeling disconnected. You look around and every day, there is no day where the sun is shining in your life. There is no day that the flowers have blossomed. There is no, when the birds sing, it irritates and upsets and so on. And the last bullet point there is about unusual behavior, like driving carelessly. So that's the second part of what I want to say. When it's time for me to shut up, I'll shut up. So I've told you a little bit about alcohol and drug use. And I've told you that one of the things that were predicted is that both alcohol and drug use would go up. And the reason the World Health Organization was able to predict this is because following any socially disruptive events, earthquakes, hurricanes, 9/11 in New York, August 7th bomb blast here in Nairobi, farming, whatever it is. All those things have the effect of stressing the community. And the way communities generally react is by increasing rates of stress and depression. Next slide, please. Now, I address you and you, professors. Poor mental health, and I see this all the time, is the number one reason for boys and girls failing. Allow me to repeat it, because it is so obvious that if you don't think about it, you fail to be a good professor. Let's put it this way. All these boys and girls here are at this university because they passed the examinations that were set for entry into the university. Well, wrong. Secondly, they were all interviewed for appropriateness of this program that they are getting into. Well, wrong. So when we have spent so many resources to educate these boys and girls and to select them and to admit them, and in the first semester they passed, and the second semester they passed, what is the new intervening variable? Well, remember that common things happen more commonly. And then I've demonstrated to you depression in particular. So every time, forgive me, the DVC, a boy or girl fails to meet the expectations of the examiner in any subject, allow your teams to ask themselves, what if that Mzee had a point? What if indeed the most frequent cause of student failure is a fact of a mental illness in particular? Once you ask that question, my job is done. Because the answer can be anything. Or it is not. Perhaps, maybe. But unless you ask that question, we see this, and I'll show you this in a minute. We see this so often. And so many teachers are frustrated. This was a very clever boy. He came here with aim. This is exactly what he wanted to study. Now he has become lazy, become lazy, Uganda na wengine. What has happened to this boy? The boy has developed a depressive illness. If I don't say anything else this afternoon to this community, take that. And mental illness presents in all sorts of ways. Irritability, mood swings, anxiety, low moods. I want you, because again I will not have time to do this, to look up ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. ADHD is an incredible condition. It captures very bright boys and girls, most times, not all the time. So what then happens is that you have a very, very bright boy or girl who got A's in standard 8, who did well in Form 4, and who now comes to KCA University. Now, what happens when you go to university? I'll tell you what happens when you go to university. Your mom stays at home, you come to campus. The reason, okay, your mom and dad. The reason you have been able to survive the trauma of standard 8 and Form 4 is because your poor concentration and not knowing where you have kept your things. Your mom cleans after you. Your dad is there to pick you up or to discipline you. But when you come to university and you're free out there, the symptoms that you had from primary school to high school now become more manifest. And what people say, haki ya Mungu huyo mtoto alikuwa ni clever. Now we don't know why he's failing all the time. Well, he's failing all the time because he has ADHD and his mom is not there to clean after him. And then university, of course, is a place of high peer pressure. So, coming to the end of this afternoon, what issues? Do you have the dean of students here? Who's the dean of students? Oh, you see, I told you something won't come. But actually, the big issues of universities historically are drug abuse, alcohol abuse, increasingly gambling. And you don't go gambling anymore to casinos. Your phone is the biggest source of new poverty amongst young people. Are you together? On the golf course, where we sometimes go, yes, caddies, you see they're gambling on their little phones. About football, I don't know basing, I don't know where I live. Yeah. So gambling is a big phenomenon which leads to poverty, attempted suicide, and I suspect disruptions in the classroom. Next slide. Yeah. Yeah. Now, I will now enter into the land of speculation. In the land of speculation, I'm allowed to say the following. That part of the reason all these things are increasing are family disruptions, as you all know about, different parenting styles, low frustration threshold, early experimentation with drugs. Let me tell you that the easiest way to make sure that your son or daughter becomes an alcoholic is to expose them to alcohol at the age of 8, 9, or 10. On this one, the science is clear. The earlier you are exposed to drugs, the more likely that you will be addicted for the rest of your life. The solution there is to delay exposure to alcohol and drugs until people reach 22, 23, 24, 25, because then that problem will not be there. And then, of course, we need, I don't know whether you have good adequate counseling programs, but that would be it. Prof, you said you are in America. That's not why I have chosen examples from America. But I chose these examples from America just to show you we are not alone. Yes? That we are together. And you can go to the UK, you can go to Australia, you can go anywhere else. Challenges with mental disorders are available across all and the very best universities all over the world. What distinguishes good from not good universities from where I stand is the extent to which a university is able to look after its boys and girls. So I've just taken one university locally, yes, which has studied this problem. Professor Lukoya Tuli wrote some years ago. Students primarily from the Faculty of Medicine, pharmacy students, medical students, so on, and looked at 450 of them. All of them normal boys and girls attending class, making notes, all the things that boys and girls do to each other and at each other. At their main age, they're a little bit older, perhaps, than yourself, 23. And look at this. 21, almost 22% of them on self-reporting self-questionnaire would identify symptoms of attention deficit hyperactivity. Now, if you are like medical students at Boy University, 22% of you would have those symptoms. 25% of the girls, yes, satisfy the criteria for this ADHD symptom. And who are shocked and appalled, 10% of university students who are normal completely, met the criteria, should have been going through some form of treatment or not. So what does that mean? It means that almost 10% of the boys and girls who are receiving lectures from their very good and learned professors at Moi University are not paying adequate attention because they are this condition causes shifting concentration. It also means that the same boys and girls have low self-esteem because the boy and girl know their potential and is not achieving their full potential. It also means that we are wasting a lot of resources by effectively talking to the wall, because that is what a boy or girl with ADHD is. Is it possible to identify these symptoms? Is it possible to identify depression and ADHD? There is a whole lot of evidence everywhere that shows that it is worth our while to invest in students' mental health. That is what I have done. So now some of you are already thinking, we say, bure kabisa kitu. Hata kusoma hajasoma. Hata mambo hayaenda. Let me tell you, none of that is true. This is what is true. A common sense approach done in Iceland, Reykjavik, city I know well, has shown us that actually using common sense is a good thing. The people of Iceland have revolutionized themselves. It's a small country, population maybe 320,000. And they have demonstrated, those of you who like to study, and to prove things, you don't just believe what you're told by old people, that parents spending time with their children, doing organized activities, football, music, debates, actually 3-4 times a week, increases the quality of the education of their children. And here it's not, a lot of people will tell you, no, what you need is quality time. Well, quality time is good, but quantity is also better. Common sense in your head. Know who your children are playing with. Know when they tell you they are going out, where they are going. Ban alcohol and cigarette advertising. Full stop. This Nyumbakumi business, people Iceland, they know a lot about. Parents, fathers, drive their motorcycles, their bicycles around, telling where you to go to where. Now where. These are not the roads of Nyumbakumi. Simple rules. No boy or girl under the age of 16 can go tangatangering in the kiosk. That is a law in Iceland. And they have clear regulations. Even this law of not being outdoors, the law about not advertising, these are all laws that have brought down first of all, the time children spend with their parents have doubled. The drug abuse used to be at the level of 17%, it come down to 7%. Cigarette use, a quarter of the children used to smoke cigarettes, only 3% of them smoke. School performance has dramatically gone up. Boys don't fight with boys anymore, and you end up with physically. No. This business, naomba serikali, na. Do in your own Nyumbakumi. So, this is what we say to bring science to where now coming to the end. Yeah. What are the risk factors? What makes young men and women more likely to develop mental disorders? They are listed there. Death of someone close. Grandmother, grandfather, mother, sibling. Divorce, the kikimbaya. For children, I don't know if it's good or bad for parents, but it's very bad. We hear about bullying. There is incontrovertible evidence that bullying actually is often a precursor to for many mental disorders. Discriminations. Oh, this boy is from town. Oh, this girl is from I don't know which village. Oh, this discrimination in schools. A feeling of exclusion is a precursor of many mental disorders. Difficulties in school. And I've told you, children have many difficulties in school. Some of them because of financial issues, some of them because of family issues. That if you're not performing to your ability in class, you're more likely to develop mental. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, here is a list. Again, I was just respecting instructions. Substance use disorders are defined by people who drink substances, people who try to stop but are unable to stop, people who take, for example, in larger amounts than they wanted to take, neglecting other parts. A boy will refuse to greet or to talk to his girlfriend, and vice versa. Continued use even when he knows it's causing you pain in relationships, and using substances, even if it makes you walk to your campus. Both facts, these ones I've already talked about. I've told you about loneliness, and I'm not telling you this just because I'm an old man. I'm telling you because it is true. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, I will allow questions to come. Again, the good professor mentioned this. Your mental health is very, very, very important because it helps you to protect your physical health as well. People with diabetes, for example, are 2 to 3 more times likely to develop depression. Depressed people are likely to be obese, not govern themselves. Depression is a risk factor for heart disease. Psychosis increases the rate of many other physical diseases, and if you have a psychosis, your life expectancy is reduced. Now, this is my last slide you'll be happy to hear. But sadly, for those who have gone, the most important. It is perhaps the most important slide for the simple reason that it is the bearer of very good news. I have given you so much bad news. Now I am here. I don't think the people at the back can see this slide. But essentially what it is telling us is take an event that stresses us, like COVID, or like a hurricane, or like this famine we are going through, or post-election violence, all those things. A number of things happen. Down here, some people will fall by the wayside. And that is the way life is. On the next slide, some people will survive with some measure of repair. They will fail their exams, their health will not be so good, they will never go back. But a very happy number will go back to normal. And that's what the majority of us try. We should not try to stop adverse events happening, because they will happen. They are beyond our control. And there are methods that you can use to teach and learn resilience. Resilience is actually a learned skill. But look what happened to some people. Thriving. Those are the people who really survive and thrive after Corona. And there are people who are saying today that Corona is miracle. Corona is the thing that has come to enable me release my full potential as a writer. I met a man yesterday, a woman, who said, Corona has taught me the important value of reading and spending time with my daughter. So it is possible, ladies and gentlemen, that this thing of Corona will, or any adverse event, will end up some measure activity. There is, therefore, ladies and gentlemen, a silver lining to this very dark cloud. I thank you all for your attention.
Thank you, Terry, for a wonderful talk. Now I want to move on to the part of question. But before that, I just want to appreciate and probably note that we have been able to learn a lot from this particular talk. We have been able to learn that you can be able to be affected mentally at any point in your life, at any capacity, even if you are a student, even if you are a faculty member, even if you are a staff member, you can be affected in one way or another. But most importantly, it has been established from the talk that by the time you are of the age of 24, all your mental health issues are able to be determined. Therefore, it's worth noting that we need to do a health check. We need to do a health check in order to ensure that we are not affected by mental health. He has been able to touch on a very important other area on substance abuse, and he has been able to shed more light that smoking is a way you are driving into the deathbed. Therefore, it's a matter that we need to take note, and it has been encouraged that if you can, try to avoid alcohol. It's another issue, another factor which is contributing very much to affect your mental health and even to affect your life. We've been able to learn briefly again about COVID-19, the effects which it has been able to have on our life and even our livelihood, our lifestyle. And while we have found that it has been a catastrophe to many people, it has been even a good luck to a few who are thriving during the period of a pandemic. I want to call upon now a few of us who are going to have questions for the next 30 minutes. We are going to have questions, to take questions which are going to be responded to by our speaker. But I want to recognize a few members of faculty and other staff who are in this particular talk who have joined online. We have deans who have joined online. We have directors who have joined online. We have lecturers who have joined online. And we have our students, our beloved students who have joined online from all our campuses. Feel most welcome while we proceed with this particular talk. Maybe for the purpose of those who are here, we just want to make an announcement that your refreshments will come after we finish. Therefore, take note of that. Any question? Any question? We are taking both online questions and those which are conveyed physically in this meeting. Anyone with a question, just raise up your hand and we'll give you an opportunity to pose a question. Yeah, Dr. Potter, please kindly come up front.
Thank you for the opportunity. Mine is a very straightforward question. And I really appreciate this talk was actually meant for all of us. And it has really touched me so much. Mine is just one. When we talk about factors, risk factors, we talk about the signs and symptoms. I was trying to ask myself, where does financial problems come in? Is it a risk factor? Is it a sign and symptoms of mental health? Is it a sign of depression? So that's my only single question for now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Spora, for that question. One more question from Dr. Rotitz. We respond to the first round of questions.
Thank you, Professor, for your talk. I want to ask questions from the perspective of a young parent. How should we handle this issue of phones and technology at home? Because children now are taking over our phones, and taking over our lives are being controlled by the internet at home. So how should young parents deal with that?
We can first respond our response to those questions from Daktari. I think our online participants feel free to raise up your hand or to pose your question on the chat forum, and they will be able to take it up. Welcome, Daktari.
Okay, thank you so much. Good stuff. Let me answer the second question first, partly because it's easier. The nature of being a child, and in particular the nature of being an adolescent, almost by definition, requires you to be an experimenter, one who pushes boundaries, and if you are familiar with evolutionary science, you will be aware that the teenager, as we evolved as human beings, was a person who was required to look for freshwater streams, go look for the berries that are best to be eaten, look for the best routes to go hunting. In other words, a teenager's role in society is to experiment and to discover things. But the second thing about, I hear a lot of people saying, oh, Instagram, oh, Facebook. Oh. Am I audible? And I laugh at such people. I laugh at such people because clearly they don't know that a human being is by nature a gossip. We have reached here as a society, as a humankind, because unlike snakes or goats or even elephants, we have the capacity to gossip. Actually, there are those who argue that human society is sophisticated in the way that it is because we can communicate with each other. This woman is charming. That man is a murderer. That person is a good one. That is gossip. And that is how we warn each other about danger. And that is how we inform each other about which are the best berries to eat. This technology you are seeing is an extension of marketplace meetings that used to take place when Jesus was alive here on this earth. Only time has changed and context. And even Jesus got lost, if you remember. He was talking to those who were saying. And his mother came and found him and helped him accordingly. What I have said about Icelandic experience, essentially it is common sense. And I've said that again. Parents must be parents, and parents must be playing the role of parents most of it. How much time your child spends on their phone is for you to decide as a parent. How much screen time he has is a decision. You cannot ask Senegalese idea. The only hint I can give you, because I'm truly an expert, is that more is better. More human and physical contact, more organized activities at your Makumi level. That's the only guidance I can give you in response to the amount of time children can spend. Now, the question of money is very interesting because it's a double-edged sword in a way. And poverty is not a good thing. But I want to introduce the concept of relative poverty. Imagine yourself in a club of billionaires where there's a billionaire worth 100 billion, another one 200 billion, another one 300 billion, and another one billionaire worth only 10 billion. How do you think the 10 billion billionaire feels? Oh, no. I want to take you to the other extreme and send you to a slum in Nairobi where one mother can afford mafuta. Look, a small one. And another mother cannot afford to buy mafuta. Now the contest becomes different. Or one mother, one family, is able to buy mafuta ya taa so that the children can have the opportunity to do homework. And another one is unable to buy mafuta. The concept of relative poverty is a very, very important question that you must allow yourself. All that said, however, and now perhaps specifically to your question, mental disorders are more common among poor people than among people who are not. Does that mean cause and effect? It doesn't mean that. It means that a lot of people with mental illnesses do not reach the, see, I told you about children who fail exams. They do not reach their potential, their full potential. Yes? And therefore, even when they get to university, they don't do as well as they could. When they get jobs, they don't do as well as they could. And they start to drift downwards. The answer to their question, therefore, is that there is a complex relationship between money and mental disorders. It's not a simple relationship. It's a complex relationship, but we do know that poverty is not a good thing, and that people can get out of some mental disorders in appropriate circumstances. A very vague answer to a very difficult question is the relationship not simple or direct.
Thank you, Daktari. We now take in another round of questions. Anyone with a question? When I bring a question from one of our online viewers, Dr. Nashi, the Dean of the School of Education. What is the government doing about mental health for the elderly? Dr. Njenga says that they are dying of loneliness. Is it possible to have forums where they may advance, share? What is the government doing for the elderly in terms of mental health? Anyone else with a question? We have to.
Dr. Njenga, you have been talking to all ages, young ones, older ones, spend time talking about with 40-year-olds and young. What worries you the most when you think about the Kenyan society?
You know, the question is what worries you the most when you think about the Kenyan society? We want to take one more question. Chelimo.
Thank you, Doc. I'd like to know what is the relationship between or the contribution of information overload, especially negative news. What's some news that it's about so much negative? You sleep, probably you dream about them. Does it contribute to mental health problems? Thank you.
Maybe the last question from our online viewers. Much as parents are supposed to provide quality time for their teenagers, most of them are really fond of keeping to themselves. I think these are comments, not a question. Therefore, the Secretary can respond to the three questions.
As always, I'll start with the easiest question because it's easy. Very easy one. Then I'll finish with the hardest one. There is again a huge body of science that tells us that, for example, post any disaster, less TV, less radio about the disaster is more. There's a concept of something we call vicarious traumatization, which is traumatization, second-hand traumatization. And in particular, teenagers who watch, like after the 9/11, all those aeroplanes that kept hitting, coming back and coming back, cause what is called vicarious traumatization. I shudder to think what happens, and I have had occasion to advise anybody who would listen, not many listen, about the reporting on the school fires. Because, and I did an article on this subject recently, there's something we call the copycat phenomenon. And the copycat phenomenon is too obvious to even need to state it. That if I see Anjaro High School on fire, and they are glorified and they are talking about, I will want to copy those. If I see this gentleman appearing on TV, who doesn't want to appear on TV? So, the World Health Organization has very clear guidelines, for example, on reporting of suicide or attempted suicide. And we are actually actively now in collaboration with Media Council and media owners and other people to try and reduce precisely what you're saying, exposure to gory detail about traumatic events. Because this kind of negative thing is too dangerous. Okay? What are we doing for my people now? Me, for example. I think we're in the very early stages, and we're in the very early stages of thinking about the elderly for two reasons. The first reason is that numerically we're nothing. Numerically, people over the age of 65, I think we're only 2% of the population. So in terms of investing rightly at the communal level, we are not enough to be taken too seriously. The second reason, and I'll say this because it is true, sisi ni watu bure kabisa. We are bure because we are just net consumers of resources. We can't discover anything. We're just, and then now I'm invited by now I don't know where we're still doing nothing. I don't know where. So when you look at the elderly from a societal investment point of view, for every shilling invested in an old man like myself, compared to the same shilling invested into a 16-year-old, the return is much bigger. Now, I'm talking not now as Frank Njenga, but a society where we are sitting on a table dividing this 100 shilling note. And I think we all agree that the best person to invest in is my granddaughter, as opposed to myself. Does that mean I'm not important? No. Does that mean we should not invest in me? No. But I think as a society, that is where we are. But I can assure you, there is a ministry for social protection and looking after the elderly. We are moving there and we will get there. Now we come to the most difficult question. What worries me the most? What truly, Professor, worries me the most is that we as Kenyans might let God down. God, in his abundant wisdom, has given Kenyans more than we deserve. Let me explain. If you look at basic things, our geographical location, we Kenyans, we didn't tell God to keep us here. We are in the center of a continent. We are the center of north to south. We have ports that take us to the far east. We are the true gateway to the continent. You cannot go anywhere in Africa unless you pass through. Try and go through Djibouti or through Durban. Number one. So geographically, look at our weather. If people, and we have asked people from Switzerland, from Netherlands, to design a place for retirement after the leap year unit, go to Nanyuki, go to Naivasha. Our weather is such an incredible asset. I will not talk about animals. I will not talk about beaches. Those are nothing. If you talk about our investment in education, a lot of misguided people here say, oh boy, what? Moi revolutionized education in this country. If you compare, you have to answer this question, by the way. If you look at South Africa, for example, our brothers in South Africa, they have a razor thin middle class. Do you know why? Because they did not invest in education the way we did it. So in terms of the human resource dividend in this country, we are unbelievable. Recently, President Uhuru Kenyatta went to the UK. I don't know if this is true. They went on their knees. Oh, Saidia Mzee, Iko Corona, can we have some nurses? Oh, can we have some doctors? Which country in Africa is exporting nurses and exporting doctors? Only this one country. We are sending teachers to South Sudan. We are net exporters of, look at our economy. We have to go on. People say, at the of Uganda, oh, Rwanda, oh, the economy of Rwanda is the size of Thika. Maybe a little bigger, okay. So it's the size of Nakuru. You start saying, at you, what. Look at that. I could go. So my concern, Professor, is that God does not sit pouring blessing, every day blessing to this Kenya. All you want to him chaff yet. So please let God down. He will not get tired of giving us blessings. That is the worry I have. We might let him down. I know we shall not.
That is quite incredible. Can we clap for Njenga? Thank you, Terry, for honoring the invites. Just want to come to the end of the Q&A. Therefore, I want to take this opportunity to recognize a few other members of staff who joined us while we began. I think that's about that time, or probably I was not able to recognize them. We do have Susan, the Alumni Association, Organization. We have Civil. We have office here, Corporate Affairs. Very kindly with she's been behind all these arrangements for all this wine. Thank you. We have Frank Soyo, Executive Assistant to the Office of the Director. We want to recognize each and every one of you. Dr. Rotich, simply that time, Dr. Rotich Web, to the Director of Incubation, a few other very tough technologies which are still heading. Therefore, at this particular point, we are now going to proceed to the presentation of gifts. But before that, I want to recognize two members of our students who came. First of all, to find out who was the first student to come to walk in this talk. Who kept the first? If you kept the first, raise up your hand. Anyone who was the very first student to walk in? If I was a student and people do not raise up their hand, my hand. Yeah. You can come up front. I have one gift for you. I will request Prof to kindly present the gift to him in a special way. Thank you. We have one student who offered the word of prayer. This is the last gift we want to give to our students, just to recognize and appreciate you for the good work that you are doing. Now, at this point, I want to welcome the Corporate Affairs to present the gift to the Chief Speaker, Dr. Frank Njenga. Kindly welcome to the presentation of the gifts. Prof, I know you are going to be required here to present the gift together with the corporates office. Thank you for that. We really appreciate your time that Daktari. You're most invited next time when we do this kind of call. Now we want to move to the vote of thanks, and we have Dr. Shigi, who is going to give it. I don't know, Daktari, if you're able to unmute and to give a vote of thanks. She was following online. Daktari, are you able to? Proceed.
What is the volume?
Just a minute, it appears that we are not able to hear you very well.
Take the mic to the speaker.
Yeah, it's like we cannot be able to hear Daktari very clearly. Let me call upon Chelimo to offer a vote of thanks on behalf of Daktari.
Sorry, we have the cherry back. Cherry, are you able to pass the vote of thanks one more time? Because we were not able to hear you at the first instance. Yes, we can. Please proceed.
Thank you so much. So I want to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of us. And mostly, my appreciation was to Dr. Njenga because of this very important, informative, and educative session that he has just headed. We are very, very grateful so we can see you. You take a lot of insight in knowing that it is not an issue, and any one of us is exposed, and therefore, when it happens, we should take it positively. So it's an opportunity from the horse's mouth. We have read a lot about you. We also read reference about you in class when we are teaching, and now we are here listening to what the way you address issues. So that was very, very helpful for us. And we hope that in future we will provide, we will also share and share the same insight with us. I also want to thank the University, especially our CEO, our Vice Chancellor, for allowing us to have this opportunity. Indeed, it's a real opportunity because we have learned that the issue of mental health is very key, and every institution should spend time and resources for the sake of the members who serve the institution in one way or another. We also want to thank our Deputy Vice Chancellor. I know it's such a busy man, but it took time to come and address this occasion. And of course, I hope for your presence, probably we have experienced the order that we have had for this event. And I also acknowledge the parents' team led by Zedi was being supported by others like Dr. Teach, Purity, Catherine, and Water. Thank you so much for bringing this event to what we have experienced today. I know you have gone through a lot of issues in terms of mobilizing students to attend this important event, knowing very well that this examination time, getting these people to come on board to come and be part of the audience course, it has not been easy. I also want to thank our members of faculty. It's not a busy time of the trimester, but a good time of and of these bodies. This is very important, and I believe that whatever we have learned today, it is something that will help us and also help people who are very close to us. Because when we understand our own mental, when we are in charge of our own mental health, it is also possible to help other people who are close to us, also around us, to be in charge of the same. That's what not least I want to thank our students. Now it is examination time, so our students, some of our students are attendance, have papers in the afternoon, and they sacrifice their time in that attention is very important. Important to them. It is not in vain, because whenever you hear from the horses, sometimes they don't forget. So it's very, very important that you took some time off and listen. It's very emotional, and I really want to thank everyone. Thank you so much, even for our institution. Note that we recognize your presence, we recognize your infant, Dr. Njenga. We are very happy, we are proud to proudly associate our institution with you, and we promise that in future we invite you for more forums, because we really want to learn about, especially in understanding your personal life. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you. Dr. Shigi is the Dean of School of Education. And now we come to the end of this public lecture. I just want to notify the participants and those who are not able to participate that the event has been recorded and is going to be shared to all our networks, and therefore you can be able to go through the recording to follow where you are not able to follow accordingly. At this point, I want to request Dr. Fred Potter to come and offer an ending prayer. And after that, the team is going to leave. While our students, we are going to wait a bit, and you're going to serve the refreshments thereafter.
Thank you for the opportunity. Let's stand up. Let's close our eyes. Our Heavenly Father, we come up to you this evening. We glorify you, Lord, because you're worthy and wonderful, Father, to be worshipped. Thank you for the blessings you have given us this far, Lord. Thank you for the meeting that we had, a very fruitful meeting, Lord. Thank you for the teaching that we have received from our speaker. Thank you because we are going to put them into use. And we're going to use them not only for our own benefit, but also the benefit of the university and the world at large. Thank you because that we are going to use it and become a blessing. A blessing to our families, a blessing to KCA University, a blessing to this country, a blessing to the world at large, Lord. Thank you because we are going to disperse and you're going to be with us, Father, wherever we go.